Nice. Well, hi everyone, I'm Kino from Fieldwork. I know you, Catherine, and hi Simon, nice to see you. And Kim, nice to meet you, and Reese, how are you all?
That's good.
Good to see you. Okay, so I'll get stuck into it. I believe I've only got 8 minutes, so I'll try and get through this quickly. So the project I'm going to talk to you about today is the Collingwood Yards project, located between Johnson Street, Perry Street, and it's near the corner of Wellington Street where the tote is, and also just a couple of streets back from Smith Street. So we won a design competition about 7 years ago now, and the challenge that we were given was to really take this complex of three pretty derelict buildings and turn them into a home for the broad sort of creative industries that included artists, arts organizations, 2 galleries, a radio station, and hospitality as well. A sort of axonometric view of the precinct. So you can see that it had this wonderful courtyard sort of landlocked in the middle. The first challenge we really wanted to tackle is how we can make this part of the broader urban fabric. So that was very clear in the brief and really clear in our aspirations. We didn't want this to be this sort of closed off ghetto of creatives. It really wanted to be part of the broader neighborhood. So how does one take this complex of buildings and make them really public, make them part of that urban fabric? Well, the obvious entry on this big sort of heritage facade was this Art Deco entrance in the middle. But the truth about it, it says all these wonderful Art Deco things, but none of those things are super welcoming. So we decided to take, I guess one could say, the path of most resistance, which was to actually try and convince Heritage Victoria, Council, and everyone involved to put this really large, slightly more urban scale opening through the heritage facade. And thankfully, we were successful in convincing them about that because it completely unlocked the precinct. It allowed us to come in on grade into that beautiful courtyard and also provided universal access to the upper level of this Johnson Street building. So some axonometrics to show some of these larger moves. So you can see the courtyard in the middle there, that sort of heritage entrance, which also one of the other problems is it came out in the back of Circus Oz, which very much turns us back to this precinct. So the first move was really that large opening into the courtyard. The second, which I'll talk about in a moment, is a new laneway connection we created at the back. And then we actually wanted the site to be still very porous. So we left the old Art Deco entrance open and created a new sort of entranceway past the Keith Haring mural as well. So in terms of the entrance itself, we really wanted to sort of strip it of a lot of those sort of signifiers of building entry. We wanted to be much more of a sort of urban scale. There's a whole story about these gold leaf columns, which I'll tell you if we're fortunate enough to be shortlisted. I don't have time to cover that in the next sort of 6 minutes, but the cladding is micro-perforated stainless steel, and the idea with that was to really sort of suck the colors of the courtyard through and make it this sort of quite inviting entranceway into the precinct. We also wanted it to have a real presence in the broader neighborhood, especially at night, and also fulfill its role for festivals and big events. So we worked very hard with the lighting designers. So there's a precinct-wide lighting design plan, and it really allows, you can see that the precinct sort of has this multiple programmable LED that can really I suppose, bring the precinct to life. And actually within that entrance zone itself, you get these sort of quite wonderful and unexpected lighting effects. And then stepping through. Here's an axonometric view from the northwest, really again showing that challenge of that wonderful sort of landlocked courtyard. So the first move was that Johnson Street link I mentioned before. And the second one was actually taking what was a dead-end laneway and cutting in a new little mini kind of almost shopping arcade. So this used to be internal space, and we turned it into public external space. So it could really become part of that sort of broader connection through to the neighborhood. So I'll take you on that journey now. Stepping through, we did some signage with our friends at TCYK, who do really wonderful signage and wayfinding. We took these 2 windows and cut them to the ground. It's often tempting when you do these moves to put a sort of black steel loop around them. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to be quite honest about the fact that we sort of cut the windows down and the, you know, the saw marks and so forth. And then that little arcade, we put new shopfront glazing in, and all 4 of you know that to really get urban scale moves to work, you really need to work on that finer detail as well. So we spend a lot of time on the kind of design of these shop fronts. And what that does is it leads you through into this sort of more corner approach to the courtyard. What it's done is it's really, that throughway has created this great porosity in the site and really made this part of this broader neighborhood. And the public has really embraced it. This gets used a lot, not only in day-to-day mode, but in markets and different events and festivals and things. So it's really sort of come to life. Some axonometrics as well, showing our next set of moves. So this is really at the back. It was all sort of really clogged up with bits and pieces that we really tried to sort of do some strategic demolition. We worked with Simone Bliss and her team at SPLA on the public realm. So it's sort of amphitheater steps there. And rather than mess around too much with existing buildings, to get them up to code, we put new lifts and stairs on the outside of the building, tried to make them sort of sculptural objects of beauty in themselves. So you can see here the first of 3 of these elements. It's got the lift shaft and then a sort of sculptural staircase. And a really important thing about this whole process was to try and get the public not just on the ground plane, but up into the building, so that the urban fabric extended up from the ground plane into the buildings. And that was really critical for us. We took inspiration from the way the National Park Service do these wonderful whimsical staircases around sort of natural features. Sorry about the crappy photo, but that's my daughter and I at the top of the U-Yanks. And you can see that we took references from the way that I suppose the national parks want you to look at the sort of natural world in a different way. We wanted to do the same with the urban space. So you can get up actually into the canopy of the trees and really get these views down into the space as well. And there's the second of those elements butted up against the building, provided universal access. Here's a view of the existing courtyard and then the proposed. So there's an additional little sort of hidden laneway entrance back to Perry Street this way. That's the other Perry Street entrance I mentioned a moment ago. And then that large sort of steps that we worked on with Simone and her team to really connect the 2 levels. And then this third lift shaft and these sort of quite sculptural platforms. And the idea of these platforms, again, was to sort of inspire not just people to sort of use it as circulation, but to have other functions for it as well. You can see some of Simone's lovely landscape there in the foreground. What's been fantastic is in the last 2 years, the artist community's really embraced the kind of architectural interventions, and there's been a whole lot of artwork commissioned and projected onto the lift shafts. And during festival sort of modes, it sort of really brings it to life. And actually, the staircases and platforms have also become real performative type spaces as well. So here's some acoustic performances there. And
1 minute remaining.
Thank you very much. Not only does it give you a vantage point from above, but down onto the sort of urban space as well. This is the existing building, and I'm showing you this because we wanted that urban space to flow up through the building. So here, rather than having this sort of grim external, internal corridor, we actually stripped all the windows out, got the light and ventilation in, and made them spaces that really invite you up into the precinct. And then we worked very hard on the sort of details as well to make sure it didn't feel like this sort of very cleaned and Botoxed heritage building. It's actually still very rough around the edges. And look, we're fortunate enough to be shortlisted. One thing I haven't been able to convey in this short presentation is really the feeling of the spaces and how the public does actually flow through them, and also the way that the creative industry within the precinct has actually engaged with the public, and it has become a thriving place for Melbourne. Thanks very much.